93.7 FM, 600 AM, KIVA, Fox News Radio, worldwide at abq.fm. You're listening to Life Imagined with Dr. William Summers. Dr. Summers, welcome to the Kiva this wonderful Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, it is fantastic as always. I mean, my gosh. Little coolness in the air, a little snow around in patches around the state. We're ready for winter. We're ready for it. And 1 year to the next big election, isn't it?
That's right. That's right. The election is right around the corner.
Well, I guess that means the show's going to have a lot of politics in the science mixed in. Yeah, what a great combo.
Well, before we dive into the politics and science for today's show, I want to ask you, what are the quotes of the day?
Wisdom from the minds of the past. And this one comes from Nikola Tesla, the great scientist who I think was the brains behind what became Westinghouse, actually. Anyway, he stated that science is but a perversion of itself unless it has as its ultimate goal the benefit of mankind. And again, on the show, a lot of times we show that our alleged scientists are really funding their own career. And you spot that in their papers when they say little cliches such as, and more work needs to be done, at the end of their paper, which means send me money, grant money, and I will do that work. That's sort of, feather in their own nest. But there's a second quote, and Langston, what I want to do here is give you the quote and let you guess who said this. Now, this is almost right out of the campaign trail. And that is, the equal right of all citizens is to health, education, work, food, security, culture, science, and well-being. And those are the same rights we proclaimed when we began our struggle. In addition to those which emerge from our dreams for justice and equality. For all inhabitants of our world, that's all I wish for. Who said that? Was it Bernie Sanders? Any of the Democrat candidates? Or who do you think said that?
Well, I would say that sounds like a socialist to me.
It certainly is. It's a little more than a socialist. That was Fidel Castro.
Wow.
He came on Jack Parr's show, which was the most popular, show. That was before Johnny Carson, and just wowed the American left. I mean, they just bought into him hook, line, and sinker. And listen to these words. The right of all citizens is to health, education, work, food, security, culture, science, and well-being. And these are the same rights we proclaimed before we began our struggle. Fidel Castro. He was the most efficient mass butcher of all time. When they scourged through that island of Cuba after his ascendancy to power, they killed people more efficiently than any other dictator in the 20th century.
Wow.
Yes, it only may have amounted to a couple 100,000 people compared to the millions that Stalin and Mao killed and Hitler. But the efficiency of it was shocking. Anyway, so we now have Bernie Sanders almost saying these exact words, or any of the Democrat candidates. So, folks, if somebody's trying to sell you a free health care program, think about it. Think about it. Anyway, the take home is this is the first day of early voting this Saturday. Go vote. Get out there, and I'm not going to say, vote early, vote often. I'm just going to say get out there and get your vote in the ballot box. Because, frankly, some of our local political hucksters are selling you higher sales taxes and bonds, and they're going to sell you on the idea that they're going to hose the rich. Well, my question to you, Langston, is who are the rich? And when you think about it, the answer is you. If you got $1 in your pocket, they consider you the rich, and your politicians are out to get that dollar away from you, either through a sales tax when you go buy a pack of bubble gum or, a carton of milk, Folks, what I want to say is the best way to starve a politician is just say no to every money item on the ballot, because they always sell it to you that it's for the widows and the orphans. They always, it's for the children, or some other, thing that just grabs your heart and pulls it out of your chest. But somehow or another, it always gets diverted. You remember the story of Hurricane Katrina, right?
Yes.
New Orleans?
Yes.
When they went back and looked at it in a careful analysis, they had received tons of money to put the dikes in the right place, and somehow or another, the money went missing. And the dikes didn't hold when Hurricane Katrina came by.
Of course.
But they were given the money by the federal government timely, years before Katrina showed up, and somehow or another it just got frittered away. Well, I'm saying the best way to starve a bad politician is just vote no on every money on the ballot, and there are a few on this one. And folks, the polls are open. Get out there and get your vote in. Do not miss the opportunity to vote in this election. Locally, I think this is probably one of the more important elections. And, of course, a year from now, we're going to have the big one. Well, I guess we should plug Memory Revitalizer, which
yes,
is what
please let us know where we can get
Memory
Revitalizer.
Yeah, just went over and restocked the supply at Sam's Regent Pharmacy at the north end of town. But we're also in Durand Central Pharmacy and over on 4th Street at Moses Country Store. And we're also in Best Buy Pharmacy on Wyoming, and then also Manal Pharmacy, which strangely is on Manal Avenue. Wow. We're also across the pond or over the river, the creek, whatever it is, Evergreen Herbal Market. In Rio Rancho, and then up in the mountains at Village Apothecary in Cedar Crest. But even around the state, we're in Fort Sumner at Addison Drug. We're also down Ruidoso. And we are at a pharmacy down there. So, but if you can't do that, go to memoryrevitalizer.com. And, folks, if you order this week, we're going to toss in a free large pill box, which will contain your 6 tablets or 6 capsules of your Revitalizer, plus any other medications. And so you can keep track of, gee, did I take my medicine today?
You got to keep track of that.
Yeah. Now, we could also go to Amazon.com, or you could order direct at 800-606-0192. 800-606-0192. Well, okay, we've taken care of the commercial concerns here. Folks, do get out there and go to memoryrevitalizer.com or lifeimagine.com, and that is for the folks under 60. For over 60, go to memoryrevitalizer.com.
Now, Dr. Summers, I want to ask you as we get more into this show. We all know it's flu season. Everybody's talking about getting the flu shot. They're worried about getting their cold. What is the scoop on the flu shot this flu season?
For 2019, yes. In the U.S., the influenza vaccine begins to be offered at the end of October. So if you go around, you see pharmacies around town, you see the little sign out saying that they will give you the flu shot, oftentimes for free. And it will be continued to be offered as long as the influenza is circulating in the community. Here in New Mexico and Albuquerque, that generally means through the end of March. And most adults, when you receive that shot or the intranasal vaccination, you get peak antibody levels only 2 weeks after the vaccination. So you can get the vaccination deep into the flu season. But let's kind of summarize it. It's recommended for all persons older than 6 months old. And also, it's recommended for pregnant women. There are several, as usual, there's several different possibilities. One's called the quadrivalent. All of them contain the same 2 influenza A viruses to be inoculated against. Now, it's influenza A that's responsible for the majority of the influenza-related morbidity and mortality That's especially in the older adults and in the infants. And it also has one component of influenza B. But the most broadest spectrum coverage is in what's called the quadrivalent vaccine. And that covers the influenza B virus as well as the influenza A. The one that's recommended, most recommended option is an intranasal live attenuated vaccine. What that means is they're giving you the live virus, but because it's been whacked and, beaten down a little bit, why you shouldn't get much of a flu-like reaction from it. My paranoia worries a little bit about the fact that that's what they said about malaria. And now the most prevalent form of malaria is the one that they were giving the live attenuated malaria vaccine to. And that's the one that's spreading in India and certain parts of Africa. Anyway, another form besides the quadrivalent and the intranasal live attenuated is the recombinant high dose and adjunctivated. And these are ones that have been souped up a little bit. They're put together for older folks, those people beyond 65 years of age, and their whole purpose is to elicit a greater antibody response and hence in their minds give greater protection. The high dose, the adjuvated, and the recombinant are the ones that they recommend for folks over 65. They do show, and they now have some data, which is interesting, in a large controlled randomized study that when you give the high dose form of vaccine or the recombinant vaccine, that it is more effective in prevention of laboratory confirmed influenza in older people. And that was a trial that was published apparently just recently and, is in the files over at the FDA. So they're beginning to accumulate evidence that their vaccines are being effective and most effective against influenza A, the H1N1 type. And, of course, the fear of the H1N1 is that was the type that was called the Spanish flu that in 1918 killed more people than World War I.
Wow.
It was devastating. The 1918 flu. It would hit a village, and the only survivor of a village of 500 would be an older person and a baby, and that's it. They'd be the only survivors.
Wow, that's unbelievably devastating.
Russia. It was absolutely unbelievable. Strangely, we still have those strains in our banks of viruses that the CDC keeps.
Well, I just want to ask, because I think a lot of people always wonder this, and I know that we get this question every year, but, is the flu shot even effective at reducing your chances in getting the flu this season?
Well, they say they have the numbers. I'm going to have to go dig out that paper when it becomes available. I was always impressed. The best year was 2004, and in 2004, if you'd gotten the shot, you had a 1 in 3 chance of getting the flu that year. But if you hadn't gotten the shot, you had a 1 in 4 chance. And statistically, over tens of thousands of people, that is hugely positive. But in actual fact, Langston, do you see much difference in 1 in 3 and 1 in 4? I don't.
I know.
And the other thing that was interesting is when they drilled down and said, okay, you had the flu shot, you got the flu. Probably your flu wasn't as bad as the next guy, but the mortality was the same whether you got the shot or not. You had the same chance of ending up in the hospital with a secondary pneumonia. You had the same chance of dying. And that was the best year they reported. That was the year that they felt they hit it. And I haven't seen anything that approaches the 2004.
So
what
what you
they're
recommend?
saying is, well, because we've got 5 or 6 different forms of this thing, it's better than ever. And I'm not totally convinced. Frankly, myself, what I'm going to do is depend upon the fact that I take Memory Revitalizer, which boosts my immune system, gets it pretty attuned, and then when these things happen, I use oil of oregano and I use OSHA, and so far I've done all right. And I've weathered quite a few of these flu seasons where I'm right in the middle of it, looking down throats of people I know have it. So anyway, for folks out there, your government would say they want you to get the live attenuated intranasal. I think what's offered, however, at your local pharmacies will be the injectables.
So you wouldn't recommend the flu shot then?
I don't personally recommend it to myself or my family. Let me just put it that way.
Well, it looks like we have a new category today on the show that you put in here, stuff your government does not want you to hear beyond the black box warning. Tell us what this new category is.
Well, basically, again, when you get into alternative health supplements, there is a long track record of the FDA trying to squash it, suppress it, tamping it down, and they are part of the chorus that comes from the AMA and the body politic of medicine, saying, oh, don't believe those old wives' tales and old doctors' tales. You got to go with the stuff that's FDA approved. But in actual fact, what I've found over the years, Langston, is that herbs have effects as advertised when you dig back in the old literature. And they do what they say. They don't do it as potently as a prescription drug. That's the distinction. They're much more subtle than the prescription drugs, but they also have virtually no side effects, which is an advantage unto itself. And I thought today what I would do is, and what this section is about, is stuff that you really have to, go and dig a little bit to get the information as to what herbs or what vitamins or what minerals are good for what. Because the black box, if you read it, it says this product is, has not been researched by the FDA. This product is not intended to treat, diagnose, or prevent any known illness. So in essence, the black box warning says your health supplement is guaranteed to do nothing. But in actual fact, if you look back before the 1994 Deshay Law, when there was a little more freedom to publish what the various herbs did, you get a little better picture of the truth. So I thought I'd talk about herbs for people who suffer from fatigue and stress or even anger issues, anger management issues. And the citrus oils would be the first thing I would talk about that helps with stress and fatigue. It helps by boosting the mood, and it gives you robust antioxidant protection. It actually is an antiseptic. Citrus oils are used to kill germs, and actually you find them in some of the household cleaners. What is it, orange or something? And what that is doing is using, orange oil from the rind of the orange, and it is a good antiseptic. Also, the various citrus oils increase the immune system support, and you can use them for air fresheners and sanitize surfaces. But from a mental point of view, they ease anxiety, they ease irritability, they lower anger, and they boost energy. And these things are available, citrus essential oils, to put into little things and that sort of heat up and fill the room with citrus essential oil fragrance. So it has that effect. But a couple more. There is a weed that is in the Midlands of England called water violet. It's not really a violet. It's actually in the primrose family. And what it does is it imparts a sense of superiority, capability, and calm control. Isn't that the definition of the English stiff upper lip?
Yeah, right.
Isn't it funny?
Right. Yeah, it does, right?
That herb is specifically found in the Midlands in England. You can just see some knight in shining armor grabbing onto a little bit of water violet before he goes out to
a sense of superiority, capability, and calm control. Yes,
absolutely.
That sounds like
yes. Soldier on, all that sort of thing. Another one is Vervain.
Keep calm and use the water violet. That should be a shirt.
Yes. Keep calm and carry, as they say. But the Vervain is a plant. It's in the lilac division of plants, and its flowers come up on leafless little spikes. It's found in the Mediterranean and through Eastern Europe, North Africa, China, and Japan. Vervain actually was used as early as the Roman times, and again, it's used for many conditions. In women, it can be used for dysmenorrhea, that's pain with your periods. It can also supposedly be used for gout, jaundice, kidney stones, all kinds of things. Insomnia and anxiety and depression are the key things that Vervain has been used for as a root over the years. I wanted to mention two others to sort of end this little section. First is willow bark, which was well known to sailors in the 1700s, and it acts a lot like aspirin. It's used for pain, including headache, muscle pains, even menstrual cramps, and for that matter, rheumatoid arthritis. If you go to Williamsburg, which is a preserved village that's preserved in the fashion of the early mid-1700s. And Williamsburg has an apothecary next to the barbershop. The barbershop are for the surgeons who did all kinds of surgeries and then also would cut your hair, while they would cut off a limb that had gangrene. But next door was the apothecary shop, which had all kinds of herbs. And it was fascinating to go there, especially if you've got a little bit of knowledge. And they would have in jars in the apothecary shop willow bark. And anyway, so another one that comes from China is lang lang. And lang lang
that was one of my nicknames as a little kid for my mother.
Really?
Without the Y.
Ah. Okay. It's actually from flowers of a tree that grows in Indonesia and Thailand and the Philippines and in India and Malaysia, and also in Queensland and Australia. But the flowers of that tree are valued as a perfume because it is, quite, shall we say, has pheromones and all that sort of thing. But it is best known for relaxation, increased sexual desire, and it also lowers blood pressure and supposedly is antiseptic, kills bacteria. And you can use it in shampoo, and they do in those countries. And what it does is kill head lice, an important issue in tropical countries. I think the take-home from this section, Langston, is, you got to trust in tradition. And you got to say, hey, people formed these opinions as to the value of lang lang centuries ago. And they didn't, it may not be as perfect as some of our prescription drugs for head lice, but it probably has a value.
Well, I think it's important that people know about these different herbs and these different natural, I shouldn't say natural, but sort of from the earth remedies, right, for different things they're dealing with. I mean, one of the things we've seen in the Amazon, this is a huge portion of quote-unquote sustainability courses and dealing with international studies. I had a class on this, had a whole class dedicated to the sort of herbal remedies and different remedies that indigenous tribes around the world have, and of course the laws related to patents or anything to protect that tribe's intellectual property on these different things. But it's important to know that there are alternatives, credible medical alternatives that are verified by doctors and have scientific studies and historical precedents on different things, whether it's rheumatoid arthritis, you're talking about menstrual cramps, muscle pains, headaches, across the board. This is a very informative portion for people to look at.
Yeah, and the thing is that we need to seek it out, especially when we look at one side of the aisle is hell-bent to give us Medicare for all. Now, I got to tell you, I've seen socialized medicine in Europe. I've seen socialized medicine in Russia. And over time, it doesn't work. They start rationing. And pretty soon what happens is the rich, the famous, and the politically connected get treated, and the rest of us, we're left to traditional medicine. And so I think it's important for people to seek out knowledge. And start accumulating laying around the house for any of the problems you might have. But, we have those preppers who, are ready and they're busy getting their ammunition ready and all that. And I think that they should probably get some Willow Bark in the event that the drugstores have been raided and there is no aspirin available. So just saying, I'm trying to provide a service here by giving knowledge that is not verified with double-blind placebo crossover studies, and point out that when we did see so-called scientific studies of herbs out of Europe in the 90s and early this century, what we would see is state-sponsored science oftentimes would design the study to show it didn't work, and hence you'd see Danish studies showing that saw palmetto is not effective at all for prostate issues, when in fact everybody knows that it is. But, as Mark Twain beautifully stated at one time, there are lies, there are damnable lies, and then there's statistics. So if you set up the protocol in a certain way, you can prove most anything, or easier yet, disprove almost anything. Anyway, I suppose we should plug the product. Memory Revitalizer is a complex antioxidant formulation with 34 components, each one of which contributes a little bit, and they all row in the same direction. For example, many of the multivitamins will toss in a little bit of gratuitous stuff, such as iron, that rows in the opposite direction and acts like a free radical, not an antioxidant. And as a matter of fact, in our last blinded study, we actually compared the Memory Revitalizer to one of the most popular multivitamins, and we found no benefit from the multivitamin, whereas the Memory Revitalizer within 30 days showed improved memory. And that was indeed a blinded study, and the same quality of study that you would see in FDA pharmaceuticals types of protocols. Anyway, so you can get your Memory Revitalizer by going to memoryrevitalizer.com, or you can Google it and go to Amazon, or you can order direct at 800-606-0192. Or if you're out and about town, you can go to Durand Central Pharmacy downtown, Sam's Regent Pharmacy in the Northeast Quadrant. You can go to Best Buy Pharmacy in Midtown, Manal Pharmacy, and that's on the east end of Manal. And also Evergreen Herbal Market in Rio Rancho, and then up in the mountains we have Village Apothecary. So we're in several places around town, and Sierra Blanca Pharmacy down in Rio Doso. So folks, these people help us, so please drop by, say howdy to them, and ask them about Memory Revitalizer or Life Imagined. They're both very, very good formulations, anti-aging, improve the immune system, and of course, they're for brain health and general body health for that matter.
Talk about absolutely fantastic. The places where you guys can get Memory Revitalizer. You want to go pick that up. A fantastic product that Dr. Summers himself has developed. We're always appreciative to have you here on the station, Dr. Summers. And I want to ask you this. We've seen politicians have politicized medicine and science. We've seen it in sports. We've seen it when it comes to Medicare and Medicaid. We've seen it across the board. But Dr. Summers, my understanding is you want to return the favor.
Oh, absolutely. We have politics in just about everything. I mean, LeBron James stuck his foot in it this last week. I thought that was kind of funny. And so, politics occurs when you see water running uphill, or you see apples falling off the ground onto trees. Our politics is occurring when you're told that you can keep your health plan and you can keep your doctor. In other words, when gravity is defied, politics is in the air. And their logic is non-logic. Well, what happens if we apply scientific logic to Nancy Pelosi's Congress, huh? Let's do that. But as an example, let's contrast it first, and let's contrast it with Walmart. Langston, Walmart, it receives $36 million every hour of every day from Americans spending their money in Walmart.
Wow.
And that means $20,928 of profit in Walmart
can you
every
imagine,
minute.
Can you imagine you personally earning $20,000, almost $30,000 a minute? That's insane.
Yeah. And it's the world's largest employer. It employs 1.6 million people, most of whom speak English. And they did this in 15 years, Langston. 15 years it took them to accomplish that level of performance and excellence. But let's as I said, let's use Walmart as the contraster. Well, then let's look at the do-nothing Congress. And, of course, the first thing that comes to mind when you talk about governmental agencies is the U.S. Post Office, established in 1775. It's actually one of only two federal agencies that are in the Constitution. And so they've had 244 years to get it right. But what's the response? The answer is they're broke. They're broke. And then, of course, another great example of Congress is the Social Security, which was established in 1935. They've had 84 years to get that working.
Complete and total waste.
Yeah. And then there was Lyndon Baines Johnson's Great War on Poverty, which was eagerly adopted by Congress in 1964. And over the past 55 years, have they got the war on poverty right, Langston? You tell me.
I wouldn't even know how to answer that, quite frankly.
We are spending over $1 trillion a year of the working stiff's money. Now, Langston, you and I are sitting here working today.
That's right, we are.
And to the extent that we are being productive in society and may get paid for that, our taxes are raked off the top and transferred from us to the poor, quote unquote. And where are we at with the war on poverty? Well, it too is broke, basically. And the country, as last time I checked, is over $22 trillion in debt.
My gosh.
$22 trillion. So I have a modest proposal as a scientist.
Hit me with it. What's your proposal, Dr. Summers?
I think we should sell or trade all of our Democrat congressmen to the Ukraine.
I'd vote yes on that.
Yes, because, well, they seem to be fascinated with this country, the Ukrainians, and apparently, as far as we can tell, there were a lot of Democratic congressmen who seem to take junkets over there and vice presidents and sons of vice presidents to go to the Ukraine. So let's just trade them or sell them to the Ukraine. Now, in exchange, what we want to do is buy up the board at Walmart and ask them to run the country. And then I think we should toss in a few utility infielders and a couple of minor league pitchers, and I think we could have a deal. What do you think?
I think so. I think we can agree on that deal.
Sure. That's, and let's hand it to Mr. Trump to negotiate the deal.
So what's the take-home on this, Dr. Summers?
The take-home on this is, folks, get out there and vote. Today is the first day of early voting, and your local hucksters are trying to sell you a higher sales tax, which is called a gross receipts tax, and they want to get bonds increased against the rich. But the real question is, when you hear that, who are the rich? And the answer is, it's you. If you got $1 in your pocket, they want to come get your dollar because you're rich. And the best way to starve a politician is to say no on every money item on the ballot. You always do that. And if we could get everybody doing that, I think we might get a few changes. But we've had, 40, 50 years of being ruled by the same party and the same folks. And the result is we're the worst in everything. It's disgusting. Anyway, moving on.
Now, I want to ask you about the Daily Mail medical news. Give us the WhatsApp on this.
This is one that I've been ahead of the curve for many, many years. The average doc will, for people who have high blood pressure, give you your blood pressure medicine to take every morning, and then that's it for the day. And they're pretty pleased with the fact it's once-a-day dosing, so the compliance is a little bit better. But this, the Daily Mail reports a study of 19,000 patients taking medicines for blood pressure. They split it into two groups and followed them for 6 years. And in one group, they said, hey, take it at night, at once-a-day dosing. And in the other half, they said, nope, go ahead and take it in the morning. What they found was shocking. They found that if you took it before bedtime, you were 44% less likely to have a heart attack. That's pretty impressive. And it also halved your chance of having a stroke. And then it lowered your risk of heart disease in general by 66%. These are robust numbers you don't even need to run statistics on. And then the Daily Mail went on to say the scientists are scratching their heads and they can't explain why it is taking medicine before bed had such a profound beneficial effect. But they do know that high blood pressure taken while a person is asleep is the best indicator of heart attack risk. Langston, did you know that? I mean, most of the time, the only blood pressure is one when you go in to see your nurse practitioner in the middle of the day, or, after frantically running around and going to see your doctor. The blood pressure is always high. It's called the white coat effect. And that's the one that they make decisions on who gets treated and how aggressively you treat it. But it turns out that if you study blood pressure during sleep, that's the one that gives the best relationship to stroke and heart attack. I did not know that.
That's very interesting.
Well, I have some thoughts about that. It came from a paper I saw a number of years ago that showed that the average massive stroke, would occur at around 5 in the morning. Well, I got to thinking about that a little bit, and I got to thinking, well, we have about 3 sets of dreams a night. You go from REM sleep down to stage 4 sleep, and then you progress back up to REM sleep where you have your first dream. And that cycle takes about 2.5 hours. So that in a 6 to 8 hour sleep night, you're going to have about 3 rounds of coming back into REM sleep and having a dream. And my thinking is that about the third round is going to be around 5 o'clock in the morning when the highest rate of strokes are. So I can envision that you are being in the middle of a nightmare, being chased down back alleys by monkers with big hairy feet,
which no doubt is going to increase your blood pressure.
And your blood pressure is going to be through the roof, and that's when you have your stroke. And that might explain why the strokes occur. And so I began a number of years ago of asking people to split their blood pressure pills in half. Take at least half of them at night. Why? Because what I want to do is control that blood pressure while you're asleep. And it turns out the blood pressure while you're asleep is the one with the greatest correlation to stroke and heart attack.
So if you're going to be taking medication to deal with high blood pressure in particular, the time you should be looking out for the most is when you're sleeping.
Exactly.
That's the greatest risk.
That is the greatest risk. And according to the statistics, now there are always exceptions, but statistically that's it. And I think that what I also do in my patients is I have them get their own blood pressure machine at home, and I say, look, we need to take your blood pressure twice a day. We need to take it in the morning, and you need to take it before you go to bed at night. And you want to try to get a good balance in your medicine to where it's fairly consistent throughout the day, which I think is preventative. And again, let's look at the pathophysiology of high blood pressure. Most high blood pressure is due to what's called essential hypertension or idiopathic hypertension, which means we don't know what causes it. We just know that after 10 or 15 or 20 years of high blood pressure, next thing that shows up is one of the major organs in your body begins to fail. It could be the heart because it's pumping so hard against the blood pressure. And so you go into heart failure, and the heart gets all stretched out, and pretty soon you get arrhythmias of the heart, such as atrial fibrillation. And when you get atrial fibrillation, you form clots in the heart, and those get shot up to the brain, and you start having some brain failure issues. Another thing that can happen, of course, with high blood pressure over the years is stroke. Which is, of course, an artery ruptures in the brain and you get a bleed into the brain. Or you can get secondary stroke, which is where you send a bullet up to the brain in the form of an emboli, either from the heart or from the arteries in the neck, the carotid arteries. And then, of course, the third vulnerable organ to high blood pressure is kidneys. And so if the kidneys, which get roughly 20% of the cardiac output, goes to the kidneys, and that filters things. So the kidneys are also vulnerable to go into failure when they get pounded on by high blood pressure. So get your blood pressure under control, save your kidneys, your brain, and your heart, and get a blood pressure cuff to make sure it's so, and then you might mention to your doctor, is there some way I can distribute these medicines to where I'm taking some of it as I go to bed at night? I suppose, well, we've got just a few minutes left. Why don't we hit that final topic, because this one's important.
Absolutely. So Dr. Summers, people say they want Medicaid for all. They want a free lunch. But Dr. Summers, how does it work out when you put the post office essentially in charge with your health?
I always like to go back to my pals at the UK Daily Mail and get opinions on that, because they're telling us more than we get here. I don't remember seeing a story in the Albuquerque Journal about children losing their Medicaid coverage, but the Daily Mail covered it, and they noticed that 1 million children lost Medicaid coverage in 2 years due to computer glitches, paperwork revamps, and fears of deportation by the illegal aliens. And it's costing us U.S. kids, legal and I suppose the illegals, their health care. And it's funny, the apologists will try to say, oh, this is because the illegal aliens are afraid to sign up for fear of being deported, and so they don't sign their kids up for Medicaid. But in actual fact, when it's been studied, they find out that Tennessee, there was a computer glitch by the bureaucrats that took 55,000 children off of Medicaid and their health coverage in January of 18. States like Texas have created a bunch of paperwork, and people just don't like to do the paperwork it takes to get your kid enrolled. So, whether it's due to A or B, I won't argue the point, but the point is when you get into state-sponsored Medicaid, frankly, the glitches get multiplied. The data gets lost, and the care goes down the drain.
And you see that across the board, whether it's with the NHS, the Canadian healthcare system. Anytime government gets involved, it is never good for your health. But one place you can always find the news and information about your health and what to do with your health is with Dr. Summers here on Life Imagined. Dr. Summers, thank you so much for joining us here in Akiva. We'll see you same time, same place next week.
Absolutely. Stay healthy out there, folks.
93.7 FM, 600 AM, KIVA, Fox News Radio, worldwide at abq.fm. Don't change that dial because more news and commentary is up next.
I didn't want